Minister, thank you very much for talking to Sky News.
My pleasure.
Let's first of all focus on the investigation. It is your view, it is the view of the Saudi government, that Iran was responsible for this twin attack. Is that right?
We hold Iran responsible because the missiles and the drones were Iranian-made. We're investigating more, and we have asked the United Nations to provide us with experts, which they have. They're in country. We've asked other countries to do the same. We want to now determine the exact location from which these missiles were launched.
And how close are you to providing that evidence? Because there are skeptics out there. Quite a lot of people simply don't believe that this was the work of Iran, and they take the Houthi view that this was self-defense for your operations in Yemen.
Our military explained a few days ago that impossible for these missiles to come from Yemen because they don't have the range. So they had to come from somewhere else. Plus, all indications are, and all evidence is that they came from the north. With regards to the timing of the investigation, I really can't comment on it because we're not involved in it, and I believe that the technical experts are going to take their time and do as thorough an investigation as possible so that when the conclusions come out, they will be airtight.
So you're absolutely convinced that these drones and missiles came from Iranian soil?
We don't know that yet. There's suspicion because they came from the north, but what we do know is that the missiles and the drones are Iranian missiles and Iranian drones.
Is Saudi Arabia prepared for war?
We hope by any means to avoid war. Nobody wants war. War is destructive. We have priorities that involve reforming our country. We have a responsibility to defend our country and to ensure that no harm comes to our country or our people or our residents. And so we will do whatever it takes to prevent our country from sustaining damages. Preparing for war is always the last option.
Are you absolutely convinced that Donald Trump has your back?
Donald Trump has been a very strong president and a very strong advocate of the US-Saudi relationship. Donald Trump has been very firm in dealing with Iran. He's committed to enhancing our military cooperation and our security cooperation, so we have no doubt in Donald Trump.
But he's also committed to having fewer wars, not more wars. So are you not a bit worried that perhaps he'll want you to fight this one alone if it comes to it?
Everybody wants to avoid wars. Everybody. Everybody.
What about the UK? Have you asked for British help militarily?
The UK also has been one of our staunchest allies when it comes to security, and we are in consultations with the United Kingdom on this area. The United Kingdom has agreed to provide naval assets in order to help with maritime security. The Iranians have engaged in aggressive behavior for 40 years. They have destroyed Lebanon through Hezbollah. They have sent militias to destroy Syria. They have militias in Iraq, they have militias in Yemen. They provide these terrorist groups with ballistic missiles and drones. And all we want is we want Iran to stop acting like a revolution and try to export its revolution and start acting like a nation state. Stop supporting terrorists, stop providing ballistic missiles to terrorist groups and militias. Stop your nuclear program. Become a normal country. Let the world accept you as a nation in good standing.
You said in the news conference that you think that Iran is trying to divide the world and that it hasn't succeeded. But maybe it is succeeding because there are plenty of countries that wanted to continue to be in the Iran nuclear deal. There are plenty of countries that want to take a different approach from that of Donald Trump and your approach. Maybe Iran is actually, their plan is working.
I don't believe so. I think the world is beginning to realize that Iran's destructive and aggressive behavior must come to an end. There may be some issues with regards to tactics, how we bring these things about, but there's no disagreement with regards to the need to ensure that the nuclear deal is solid, that Iran will not be able to enrich, that the inspection mechanism becomes stronger, and that we have to deal with the issue of ballistic missiles and the issue of terrorism and interference in the affairs of other countries. There's a consensus that these issues have to be dealt with. There may be some differences in terms of how we get there. We believe that appeasement does not work.
There is a suggestion perhaps it's less likely now that Donald Trump and President Rouhani could meet in New York. Would you welcome that, or would you see that as appeasement?
We believe that the Iranians are obfuscating and that they're dragging things out in order to gain time. They could have talked to the US a year or so ago before the sanctions were imposed, and they chose not to. Now that the sanctions are imposed, they're saying remove the sanctions and I'll talk to you.
Specifically about the war in Yemen, you're losing this one, aren't you? It's time for a different approach. I was looking at this latest UN study, it talks about 230,000 people having lost their lives by the end of this year. One child dies every 12 minutes. This isn't what you expected in Yemen.
Two things I would like to say. First, on the report, we take issue with the objectivity of the report and the methodology of the report and the conclusions of the report, and we've made that clear, and we will make it clear to the United Nations. One. Number two, we did not start this war in Yemen. The Houthis started it, and it was a war that was raging for 9 months before we intervened in order to support the legitimate government.
You may not have started it, but you could finish it.
But we cannot allow radical militia allied with Hezbollah in Iran in possession of ballistic missiles to be in charge of a strategically important country.
The commander of the Revolutionary Guard in Tehran has said, I think today, our readiness to respond to any aggression is definitive. We will never allow a war to enter our land. We will pursue any aggressor. We will continue until the full destruction of any aggressor. That, I think, we can read from that if there is even a limited strike on Iran by you, by the United States, then that will be, in the words of your counterpart in Tehran, all-out war. So I ask again, are you prepared for that and all the consequences?
We will do whatever it takes to protect our nation, period.